Welcome to the L&D Forecast 2025, where we will look into trends and challenges and, of course, the role that AI will play in learning and development and how that's all going to shape 2025 moving forward. This is going to be the agenda for today. So we're going to start with a brief introduction just of ourselves, Blue Elephant Solutions, as today's host. Then we will look at three key trends and focus areas of learning and development in 2025. We will then look at some of the challenges that might impact learning in 2025, and of course, the role that AI will be playing. And then to cap things off, we will also look into what L&D is going to look like in 2025 with Blue Elephant Solutions, and how we, from our end, will be tackling some of the key trends, some of the challenges in the learning space in the coming year. And as a bit of background, so for the trends, the challenges, and the role of AI as a main source when we're looking at these things, we actually have conducted a survey over several months towards the end of last year among L&D leaders from several industries like manufacturing, retail, healthcare, professional services, and others as well, across different countries. We had a lot of feedback, a lot of input from countries in Europe, in Asia, even in Africa as well. So we got really good representation of the status and the outlook of learning and development, both from SMEs and from MNCs as well. So that's going to be a main source for today for the information as well, just as a bit of background. Yeah. Right. Hey, welcome, Vicky. Right, then I will start with the first point of the agenda, just to, again, give a very brief introduction. So for anyone who's not familiar yet with Blue Elephant Solutions, we specialize in building AI-enabled education technology, learning platforms, where we combine AI, new AI technology, with proven education methods to create scalable and impactful learning experiences. And when we say impactful, what I mean is, of course, improving the efficiency and the effectiveness of learning outcomes. But we look at it for both sides. So obviously for the learners, they should be taking away more and as much as possible from learning programs and their trainings. But we also look at the effort that means for trainers, because of course it's great when learners learn more. But from a trainer perspective, you as L&D professionals, if that means exorbitant more amounts of work, that's also not ideal. So we always try to look at having a positive impact in terms of efficiency and effectiveness for both sides. We're based in Singapore, but we do work with clients internationally. So we have clients in Asia here. We also have clients in Europe that we work with. And yeah, then you can see on the bottom some of the selected awards that we were fortunate to win recently. And on the right side, some of the clients that we work with. SIT here in Singapore is a big university. Then the next to KMD and DUU are some healthcare providers, or like hospitals, actually, not just healthcare providers. And then, of course, Siemens Healthineers is quite renowned as well. Just some of the selected companies that we work with. Right. But that's for now, I think, enough about us. So I'd like to start looking into the key trends and focus areas for 2025. And I would like to start with hyper-personalization in learning. And this may not be the biggest surprise, because organizations have explored this more in recent years, especially with the surge of AI. Personalizing and hyper-personalizing learning has become more and more achievable. It's only a fraction now in terms of administrative effort that's needed that it would take without this technology to achieve the same things. And yeah, hyper-personalizing learning paths does boost learner engagement. Learners see relevance to their own space, to their own pace, to their own learning style. And it enhances the learning outcomes because of it. It provides a higher level of relevance to the individual roles and the skill requirements of the roles, which obviously subsequently also leads to closer to achieving the organizational goals as well from a trainings perspective. And when we look at the survey that I mentioned earlier, actually 86% of the respondents have rated personalization as important or even crucial in their LMS. So it really underlines that trend that it's becoming a really important factor now in learning and development. And actually, if we take a look at the main learning methodologies and formats, we can see that most organizations have implemented some form of online learning at this point. About 60% have fully implemented it, 30% partly, so 90% in total really have it implemented to some degree, which builds the foundation really that's helpful for personalized and hyper-personalized learning. We can also still see a big presence of in-person learning. However, what we don't see is any more planned implementation in that area. So, of course, many organizations have used this approach for a long time, and they will not fully neglect it, and they shouldn't, as it's still a useful delivery method in certain scenarios, certain cases. But in present times, sorry? No, okay, sorry. So that was a question maybe. But in present times, it's not necessarily the most practical approach anymore in general, which we will later see a bit more about when we come to the challenges. However, what we do see here is the emergence of personalized and hyper-personalized learning as well. So both have relatively high levels of planned implementation. Actually, in terms of planned implementation, it's the highest levels among all of these formats. And for hyper-personalization with AI, which we see at the very bottom, we can see that about 50% of organizations have partly implemented it or are planning to implement it at this point into their learning strategy. So it really shows a shift towards that as well.
So can we ask questions now, or would we wait for the end?
Ideally, if we could wait for the end, it would be great if that's fine. Yeah, perfect. Sure. Then we do it like that. Okay. Then we know a bit better how much time we have left as well. Thanks. Okay. I will get to the emphasis on upskilling and reskilling here. That's another key theme in the current L&D landscape. Organizations are realizing that in order to stay competitive in a world that's evolving very fast, very rapidly, the emphasis needs to be a bit more on what employees can actually do, not just the roles that they hold. So role scopes, requirements, they become more fluid nowadays. And actually, according to the World Economic Forum, by 2025, so this year, 50% of employees will require reskilling, which really shows the urgency for organizations to invest in upskilling and reskilling. And we can look at skill maps and competency frameworks that will become critical tools in that effort. So they allow organizations to identify gaps between their current workforce capabilities and the skills that are required to meet business objectives. And that's a way to empower the employees on one hand, so they remain relevant for the organizations as well. And of course, ensure from a business perspective that the business stays future ready. So the focus is really on building a workforce that's agile, that's adaptable, and also aligned with where the organization is headed. Right. And again, when we look at the survey report, we can see that skill development really takes center stage here as a very high priority. More than 80% of organizations have a high focus or at least moderate focus on upskilling their employees, with the development of technical skills particularly high on the left side. Another high focus area you can see here is leadership development. It's the second from left over here, with more than 60% of organizations putting a high focus on it. And that brings me to the third trend that I want to look at for L&D in 2025, which is leadership training. And of course, that makes a lot of sense as well. The reason for the high priority on it is that leadership development is very much tied to driving organizational success as well. So if we look at core leadership skills like strategic thinking, like your business acumen, like team management, these are all some of the hardest skills to replace, because you can't just sit someone into a training and then they walk out of it with these skills. These are all skills that are really built up over time with a lot of experience in an organization. So if we lose these skills, it puts organizational knowledge and the long-term strategies more at risk, which is why a lot of organizations now are doubling down on the leadership development. And some organizations actually really start to also align the leadership development initiatives with the business objectives, which then in turn promotes the improvement of the individual, but also helps to drive the organizational strategy at the same time. And that again brings us back to the implementation of competency framework that we just talked about earlier as a tool for upskilling as well, which really does help us tie together workforce training and organizational objectives as well. Right. So at this point, I want to take a look with you at some of the challenges for the learning and development space for 2025. When we take a look at the survey here, we see two challenges standing out most, which I want to focus on today. One is incorporating learning into busy schedules. And that's also one of the reasons why organizations more proactively explore options outside of in-person learning. The other one that we see here is ensuring training relevance to employee roles. So these are the two I want to dive in a bit deeper today. Now, if we look at the scheduling pain point, the reason is quite simple, actually. Roles and workloads become more demanding, right? Employees need to, of course, juggle their classic meetings, their deadlines that have always been part of most jobs nowadays. But they also need to juggle expanding scopes at the same time and fluid requirements. So it's rarely about not wanting to make time for learning. Actually, there's several sources out there that demonstrate the opposite. They show how important learning and career development is to people when it comes to choosing your employer or choosing to remain at your current company. But it really is about the lack of time. But at the same time, obviously, if learning doesn't happen, skill gaps do become bigger. The productivity does take a hit. Employees can start to feel stuck in their careers. So that's something we need to avoid. And the good thing is that the more technology advances nowadays, the more opportunities we have to tackle that problem. And one of the most effective approaches to do that is to integrate learning into the flow of work, essentially. So instead of employees needing to set aside bigger blocks of time, we can offer microlearning, which helps them to complete sessions in shorter amounts of time, often just a few minutes at a time. We can also look at implementing asynchronous learning and use platforms that foster that. So like mobile learning, for example, where employees can go through like fun little scenarios, especially when we combine it with microlearning as well. And they can even do that outside of working hours if that's needed. And I know what you're thinking, who wants to learn outside of working hours necessarily. But if you deliver the learning content in a way that's fun and engaging and interactive, it actually works, because we're always on our phone anyway. Just when we're on the train, you can see everyone staring at their phone, including myself. So if learning is fun and it doesn't take super long, then people actually will be able to do these kinds of things outside of work as well, and it will have a positive impact as well. Another way would be offering on-demand resources. So meaning if I'm on my job confronted with a certain scenario and I need help right now, do I have the resources to look things up right now on the spot? The goal really should be to make learning feel seamless and not something extra that people have to add to their plates, which are already quite full. So really something that naturally fits into the day. And then that's something, that's a way to tackle the busy schedule challenge. Right. The other big challenge is ensuring that the training that we offer is truly relevant to employees' roles. And because also, let's be honest, we've probably all have been there at some point in our career. Nothing is more boring or disengaging than sitting through a training and thinking to yourself, how does this actually really practically apply to my job? That's all great in theory, great that I'm learning this, but how does this help me in my role? If employees can't immediately connect what they're learning to their day-to-day responsibilities, they're way less likely to engage. And then they're also way less likely to retain the information. And then, of course, in the end, they're also way less likely to apply what they learn. But of course, as we've just spoken about, when we consider how quickly roles are evolving and how fluid requirements are nowadays and job scopes are, it becomes way more of a pressing issue suddenly. Yeah, shifting priorities, evolving scopes. Yeah, that makes it way easier nowadays for training programs to fall out of sync with the requirements of the roles. And again, what we can do is rely more on technology to help us with that. What we can do is use competency frameworks, as I mentioned earlier, that map out the specific skills, the knowledge, the behaviors that are required for the success in every role within an organization. And competency frameworks are adaptable, or at least they should be set up in a way that they are adaptable. So as a role changes, the framework can be updated to reflect new demands. And yeah, this way keep training aligned with evolving needs. So that really serves as the foundation for offering personalized learning paths as well then. And again, if we utilize technology, we can achieve that without too much additional administrative effort. So we can really tap on AI, for example, as well, to deliver tailored training programs and address specific role requirements and also learners' unique needs at the same time. And that also brings me to the next point on the agenda today, which is the role of AI in learning and development. And I will have a quick sip of water. And then we continue. The role of AI in learning and development. Yeah, so that's a bit like the elephant in the room, I feel, in the trends and the forecasts of recent years. It's always, what's the current state of AI? Where does the journey go? But the question keeps being relevant just because of how the technology evolves and how it becomes more and more capable of being that powerful partner in the learning and development space. And you can see that across the respondents of our survey, the majority has now made some experience with AI in a learning and development capacity. So you can see that in many areas in which AI has been utilized, the effectiveness has actually been rated as quite high. We can look here at content creation, for example, on the left side. Of course, the personalization aspect, content curation, they all have high ratings when it comes to effectiveness based on the respondents from the learning and development space. So the question now is, where do we stand in terms of implementing these things at an organizational level? And we can see here that when it comes to content creation, content curation, and smart recommendations, actually more organizations than not have at least partially implemented AI to support in these areas or plan to implement it. So you can see, especially when it comes to content creation and curation, they already have quite a high level of implementation at this point. When it comes to smart content recommendation, it's about 1/4, a little bit more actually of organizations, but yeah, a similar number that is planning to implement it as well. And here in the areas of personalized learning paths, adaptive learning platforms, and predictive analytics, it's not quite the majority yet, even though personalized learning paths very close to that. But it's still a big number. And especially when we look at adaptive learning and predictive analytics, around 1/4 of organizations actually are looking to implement AI. So the trend clearly goes towards exploring the technology and really utilizing it on how it can be applied in learning and development. Sorry, quick question from Ulrike in the organization. So we have, the question is, what is the databases? So we actually have conducted a survey across learning and development professionals of multiple organizations, both in Asia, in Europe, some in Africa as well. I think Australia too, New Zealand. I would have to double check on that. But yeah, so it's basically a survey we conducted ourselves across multiple months, ending at the end of last year. That's giving us the sources for this. Yeah. Right. And on this slide now, we can see that we have similar numbers when it comes to AI being used to identify skill gaps in real time and utilizing it to make the delivery of training content more interactive. Sorry. The implementation level for chatbots, for instance, support still seems a bit lower, at least when we look at current implementation. But we can see that also here, almost 1/4 of organizations are planning currently to implement AI in this area. So again, it's really a point now where across these areas of L&D, most of the time, close to half the organizations are really proactively exploring how AI can help them and are partly implementing it at this point. And on this slide, what we can see here is areas where the L&D professionals in our survey expect the biggest impact. So we can see here the very high ratings across these L&D areas. And if we combine these numbers for every aspect of L&D that we see here, every one of them is over 80% actually, which again shows there are high expectations of what AI will be able to do in learning and development. And rightly so, if we look at the strides that have been made over the past couple of years with that technology. And you can see even when we talk about the chatbots, which is on the lower right side over here, where we just saw that the implementation level at this point is still on a bit of a lower side compared to other areas. The potential is still seen as very high. So it clearly shows that in the future, that's where things are going to go as well. Yeah, so to quickly summarize this, the insight, I think, really show how the L&D space really shifts more towards exploring how AI can supplement L&D strategies and programs, but also go beyond exploring and really start to implement it. I think that's the stage where we're at right now. And I mean, that's not surprising because, first of all, I think in general, people in the learning and development space are naturally quite curious with a hunger of learning new things. I've actually not met someone from L&D yet who only enjoys like the teaching aspect of things, but doesn't like learning and exploring things themselves as well. So I think it's, obviously very helpful that most people in this place, I assume, have like a very open mind to exploring new things and see how technology can help them make things more efficient and effective in learning and development. But of course, again, at the same time, it's also a testament on how far the technology has come in recent years, really. How AI has really become more tangible in a sense. And its capabilities have become optimized to an extent that really offers powerful support in a lot of areas in learning and development, especially when it comes to things like hyper-personalization, content creation, and analytical insights as well. Right. Sorry. So for the last point on today's agenda, we want to give you a quick outlook on how we address these challenges and the trends that we just spoke about at Blue Elephant Solutions here. And the way we do this is that we've always had a high focus on microlearning, on mobile learning, and on using AI for hyper-personalization as well. So what you see here on this slide are our 3 standard platforms that we provide. On the left side, Knowledge Gym, which is a mobile learning platform with a high focus on helping learners not just to learn new things, but also retain knowledge. So it's really geared towards knowledge retention. And it delivers learning in small micro chunks, so in fun little micro scenarios, and uses AI combined with spaced repetition to deliver content at the exact right moment when it has the biggest impact on the knowledge retention. So it's an algorithm that basically calculates how fast every user on this platform forgets training content or new knowledge, and when is the ideal time for them to repeat these things, and then delivers it to them at the exact time when it's needed. So it's really about knowledge retention and achieving that behavioral change in applying things that you learned as well. It comes with a built-in AI content generator as well, so it can use training content that you have and transforms it into the micro scenarios that are needed for the more interactive delivery of this platform. What you see in the middle is the AI conversation coach, another mobile platform where learning and development managers or trainers can create conversation scenarios for the learners with an AI persona. So there's an AI persona that can be created as well, can even give a face to it that can be animated, can select a voice, and then you can fully create your own conversation scenario that the learner goes through. And the AI will then converse with the learner and go through the simulation together. So let's say a sales representative needs to learn how to close a deal or how to sell something to a client. That's something you can do here. Or if we look at customer service, how do we approach some, I don't know, more complicated conversations? How do we handle complaints? How do we handle guest experiences in a hotel? Or if we look at leadership training, what we said earlier, right, as one of the bigger focus areas this year, how do I handle some maybe more uncomfortable conversations with my team, like those kinds of things? You really have free reign about this. And on the right side, the AI knowledge assistant focuses on the spot knowledge access. So as an organization or as the learning manager, you can put your own, create your own knowledge bases in the backend just by uploading documents as well, and can assign these to users in the front end. And when users need to know something on the spot, they use an AI chat. And the AI then accesses the information directly from the knowledge base that you've built in the backend. So it's a bit like, I guess, your own personal ChatGPT in that sense. So the ChatGPT that clearly works within the confines of your organizational knowledge. So yeah, really practical when you need to look things up on the spot somewhere. You save a lot of time not having to read through a lot of documents and find things. That's the idea of the knowledge assistant. Yeah, so that's just an overview of the standard platforms that we have. We also build customized platforms where we use these features in a similar way, or other features as well. So yeah, anything that's more customized from scratch, we also do that too. And now for these platforms, we of course already have right now. They're already in use. Now for this year, moving forward. Oops, sorry. Yeah. As mentioned, we are based in Singapore, and the government here also recognizes the importance of implementing these trends, new trends, and addressing the challenges to stay ahead of the curve here and remain competitive in the organizational landscape. And that's why we're currently, we're actually endorsed by a government-affiliated institution here for a new development. And in this development, we are using the features that we currently have in the portfolio, so the ones that we just talked about, and we combine them with other features, which include a competency framework, as well as analytics that let organizations get insights into the impact of their training initiatives on business KPIs. So the idea is really, of course, for the competency framework to really have a basis that tells me which kinds of skills, which kind of knowledge, which kinds of behaviors do my employees need in the specific roles, and also in the seniority level of these roles. So yeah, a sales representative might have other requirements, of course, than a sales director. So all these things can be implemented and approached with a competency framework, which then suggests the necessary training courses to go through to end up where you need to be in terms of the requirements of skills and knowledge and behaviors as well. And again, the measurement of training impact on business KPIs, which I think is a quite useful tool to have. The idea is really to see which training factors impacted my business. So for example, if I look at a KPI like the sales revenue over time, I can then see what kind of training programs or what kind of training factors actually impacted my sales revenue the most. For example, is it actually the performance on the training platform? Is it how much did people know on the training platform? Or is it more how much time they've spent in general interacting with the content? Or is it how much repetitions they've gone through? So you will be able to see these things and how they impact certain business KPIs. And that will enable you as a learning and development department to better make adjustments and focus on specific areas that have proven to work really well in specific business objectives. And right, that's it for the forecast today. Before we go to the questions, really thank you for joining today. We hope you found it informative. If you want to take a deeper dive into any of these topics, any of these points, do reach out to us. If you don't want to do it on the call now, of course, the deep dive takes a bit longer. But yeah, reach out to us. We're always happy to have a chat, see how we can help, whether that's through one of the solutions that we just went through, or if it's really just offering some guidance as well. We're always happy to have a chat. You can see our contact details here, but I will also actually put my personal email in here as well, max@blueelephantsolutions.com, if someone wants to reach out to me personally. You're more than welcome to do that as well. So my email is in the chat here too. Vicky just said, thank you, apologies. I have a meeting to attend, no problem at all. Thanks for joining. Again, do reach out to us. I hope you found it informative. And
maybe quickly add to this one, Max. I also just uploaded our summary of the 9 L&D must-haves for 2025. I think that's also a good basis to look again on some of the key trends, and we actually summarized already some kind of a small action plan on what you can do. But what we also offer to all the people we work with is to reach out, book a meeting. We have extensive documents on each of those 9 trends, and we take an hour of our time and we guide you through some of the tools you can use on how to implement those trends, on how to really make them work in your organization. Because that's, we can always say you should do this and this and this, but it's always very abstract and far away from your real needs and pain points. So we would always take an hour and go through 1, maximum 2 of those trends in detail with your specific situation. And that's free of charge. That's really just, we have been in L&D for a long time. I've been in big corporates. I know the pain points and I know how valuable it is sometimes to get an external view on some things. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for adding that as well. And we do have one question from Ayan, which I will leave to you, Chris. I don't know, we can't go too deep into that, I think, because it's a bit more of a complex one. But the question is, how do we measure the ROI of learning strategies from a business perspective?
Yeah. So as Max just mentioned, we won a grant from the Ministry of Education in Singapore to work on this topic this year and incorporate it into our tools. And how the plan is, so we measure pretty much all the activities of the learners on the platform. That could be which trainings do they attend, when do they attend them, how long do they attend them, how do they perform in those trainings, how often do they repeat it. All this kind of measurements flow into our data set. And then we link it to some real performance data in the organization. And so here the idea is there will be ideally data on a personal level, if not then at least on a department level, for example, sales performance of the different sales reps. And that could be, how good are they in setting appointments, how many leads do they generate, whatever the KPIs are that are measurable in the organization. And then those numbers, there will be a regression analysis on this. So we will try to identify how strong are certain L&D KPIs driving certain performance in the organization. And that could be that the outcome is training XYZ does not have any measurable impact on the performance. Obviously, we will never be able to predict everything. That training is not the only part relevant for certain KPIs. And there's always other trends coming in as well. But the regression analysis, multifactorial regression analysis will be what we use, is good to tell us at least how much is explainable and which factors are the crucial ones that really drive the performance that we're looking for. So yeah, that's how we're going to do that.
Thanks, Chris, for explaining.
Any other questions? I think, Rajan, you had one question in the beginning. Sorry to cut you off there a little bit.
No, so thank you so much, gentlemen. It was really eye-opener. Yeah, some of the things are which is happening in the world. Thank you for bringing that for all of us. I have a lot of questions, in fact. So let me go by one. So I heard you said the AI is helping us in number of ways, and I've heard you guys talking about content creation, curation, and predictive analysis, along with other important things like smart content, etc. So I want to understand what are the most useful tools, etc., which organization are deploying to get these 3 tasks done.
So content generation is for sure one very important point. So in our learning tool, for example, you just upload a PDF document with your training content or like a compliance guideline or something like that. And then the tool automatically generates learning quizzes out of this. And you can curate them. So it's like an 80% work reduction, I would say. You still have the chance to go over it. You can customize it, you can change it. So that's for sure something big. Content translation, that depends a little bit on your industry. Some of our customers, they have user base or like an employee base with 40 different languages. They work in a, they have logistics people, guards, gardeners, cooks. Like imagine a big university hospital, they have all these services around. So they need to convert their training content into a lot of different languages to make it really relevant and for the people really to understand what the training is about. That's for sure another very important part where AI can support you. Another part that we are currently working on is with one of our big university clients on how the AI can give direct feedback to students. Like they sit in a meeting like we are now, they discuss group-wise on certain topics, and the AI is listening and later on gives feedback to the students on how their communication skills are, how they can improve that communication skills and this. So this direct feedback, same as we have incorporated in the conversation coach, where you have a one-on-one conversation with an AI, and the AI is giving you always feedback and saying, hey, if you're the manager and you have a meeting with your employee, maybe you should focus more on those areas when you talk with them, or maybe here you're a little bit too harsh or things like that, or in a sales situation. So this direct feedback, customized feedback, you can really scale coaching in the organization to a very broad audience. And obviously you can look at those recommendations that the AI gives to the individual learners in your backend system, and your trainers, they can see a summary and understand, okay, good, maybe I have a conversation with this person or this person on certain topics or priorities that we need to focus on. So the AI really helps you to largely scale coaching and personalization of the training.
Sure. So, are there any external tools that you recommend or you have seen, because you've done the survey and this has come from multiple organizations? Beyond what you guys offer, what are the most common tools that you see are prevailing in the industries, or L&D professionals are getting hands-on to?
I mean, if you can, and if your organization allows that, and I would always recommend you have a business account, not a free account on ChatGPT, then that is already a good tool, but it's just not a process that can standardize your work in a certain way. You still need to make sure that your prompts that you're using are good and things like this. But definitely ChatGPT is a very, very good tool. For some of our clients, we even implement and host local large language models. So it's something like ChatGPT, but they have it on their own server because they're critical infrastructure. They don't want to share that information. It should not go to the US companies whatsoever. So that's also something we offer. And then there's a lot of other tools, like when we have this translation, for example, there's tools we use for our clients, but you can also use them. They're not our tools to translate videos. So you upload a video, an explainer video, and then the tool translates it into a different language. So there's a whole bunch of tools, really depending on what your specific use case is and what you need.
Good. Thank you so much. Another question was around, I heard it's 2025 would be the time for hyper personalization. And then when I heard about the leadership training is also one of the priorities. And when I heard about the leadership training, I didn't hear anything about making leaders aware and more, uh, enabled on technology. Is there a dissonance on what L&D wants, what maybe the learner wants, and what the leadership wants? What would be your comment on that? Because I'm hearing this again and again that softer skills are required for leaders, whereas nobody is talking about enabling leaders on technology and their own. Unless a leader agrees on on if he believes in micro learning And I can give you a lot of examples from specifically from the industry where I am, the pharma industry, where people have spent 20, 30 years and they've grown into the ladder. There's somebody who has done a 25-day onboarding or induction program, and you tell him, "Hey, I'm going to do the entire induction over a chatbot, or over LMS." He says, "Hey, that doesn't work." So, so it's about both leadership mindset. So, any thought around leadership mindset and orientation around the new ways of working within L&D? Any thoughts around that?
I totally get your point. So I was working for Siemens Healthineers before. I understand this healthcare industry quite well and this pains to get the buy-in. I think the beauty with, especially when we look about implementing AI into our learning processes, is that there is huge potentials for savings in the organization. So there's really, AI will have a financial impact, and that is always for the management a good selling point. On the other hand, we can really now make training relevant for the individual. So you can take the same, I always use this compliance guideline, but you can use any kind of document that you have or that you want to train, leadership guidelines, whatsoever, and you can hyper personalize this now. You just tell the AI, customize it for this specific role with this specific experience, and this person gets really a customized training. Only the relevant information, and maybe like when we could talk about the compliance guidelines, the finance department gets only the content that is relevant for them, and the sales gets the one that is relevant for them. And so it's also for the users a real benefit to make it more interesting, and it's really like you have your personal coach all the time with you. I think that's
Well, I think I really like the personal coach app or the tool that you spoke about. Would like to explore that a little more. Maybe I got the details here. Would like to get in touch with on that maybe later again. Thank you so much for your time and your feedback.
Thanks for the good questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Rajan. And just a quick one for everyone as well, because Ura Janat actually just asked as well whether we were sharing the deck. You can actually download the survey on our website as well for free. So if you go to blueelephantsolutions.com, I just put the website URL here into the chat as well. You will see it on the main page already, and you can just download it from there, get some more insights as well. Okay.
And Max, do you want to quickly? No, I think that's too much. Any other questions? Let's first ask that. So we are FIRE. We love learning and development. We love AI. So if there's anything after the call that you have some ideas or you want to get some brainstorming going, please let us know. We uploaded this document, this PDF document earlier in the chat with the 9 L&D trends. Have a look at that one. It's already giving you some ideas on what you can maybe work on. And if you need in any way support in this, let us know. And Rajan and anyone else who's also interested in some of the other tools we have, please also reach out. Thank you so much.